Welcome to the Big Success Podcast, cutting-edge conversations on business and personal success, as well as how to level up. Here's your host, #1 business coach in the world, Brad Sugars.
Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of the Big Success Podcast. I'm Brad Sugars, your host, and BS stands for Brad Sugars and Big Success. And we're going to talk about that today with Dr. Michelle Rozen. She is the change doctor. She's been on NBC, ABC, Fox. She's all over the place. Written some amazing books, The 2-Second Decision. We paid her big money to come speak at a conference, but today you get to listen in for free. Learn success from a master of change, a master of success, the change doctor, Dr. Michelle Rozen. And Big Success this week, we're talking with Dr. Michelle Rozen. Michelle, thanks for being a part of the Big Success Podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad to be here, Brad.
You know, when we think about success, and I always ask people on this one, what is success to you? How do you define success?
It's so interesting, Brad, because it's very, very personal. And it goes back to what pushes us, what motivates us, right? What is it to us? So for me, it's always been my family, my kids, my husband, Adam, my 3 kids. I'm not counting my dogs, but they're a huge part of my motivation too. But family is my most important thing. And so a lot of the things that I've done, like when I completed my Ph.D, when I started speaking, when I have a very hard day and I think to myself, okay, I have to pull through, it's always around my family.
Yeah, I love that it's so personal to you. I think that's a very important factor that a lot of people seem to miss. They try and make it about what they think other people want to see in their success.
It's so true. And you know what? It's also okay to drop the guilt around what motivates you. Because if what moves you, what ticks you, is you want to make a point to someone about something, I think it's so legit. It's okay. Whatever moves you. There's no way for you to feel bad about it because of what, like you said, what you think other people expect to be your motivator.
Yeah. So that every time you say that, I think of, when I first decided to be successful. But I want to ask you, when did you decide that you were going to be successful? When was it? Because success is not just I woke up and felt like I was successful one day. You have to kind of decide to be the best or to be a leader or to be great at what you do.
Of course, because you have to get uncomfortable, and nobody likes being uncomfortable. So you have to have a really, really good reason to do that. So for me, this takes me back to a time in my life where I worked at a job that I didn't like. Mm-hmm. And I felt that I could be so much more. And if there's anything, Brad, that reminds me of how painful that was, I remember going home and telling my husband, Adam, that I feel like I'm wearing shoes that are 2 sizes too small every single day. That means that I am not living the kind of life that is to my potential. And it really bothered me. I was looking around at other people and saying, I could be so much more. And that pain was the catalyst to me getting out of my comfort zone and making a huge effort to live to my full potential.
Yeah, I love those words, live to my full potential. It's,
right.
What you deny in self, you deny in others, and what you deny of self. And so I love the way that thing. So then let's get into some depth then. How does success happen? How does success become a reality for people? What's your theories and thoughts on that one?
People think of success as it's a very big term. Like, what is success? You could be extremely successful at your career, but a complete failure or feel like a complete failure in your personal life.
Yeah.
So are you successful? Are you not successful? Or it could be the other way around. And so if you look at it from a very personal angle, I think that success is when you feel that you have lived or are living to your full potential in multiple aspects of your life. So to me, it's getting up in the morning and saying, how can I be the best person that I can be today? And that is as a parent, as a spouse, as a daughter, as a friend, as a professional.
And how does that happen, though? How do people make that? What are the steps from, like, if you look back at the steps you took from working that job with the shoes 2 sizes wrong size to today, how did that happen? What was the process for you?
So it has to start from pain. So I would say step number 1 is your pain. And I talk about that in my book, 2-Second Decisions, about the 5 steps to change. So the first step is pain. The second step is that you decide what you want, right? You can have all the pain in the world, but if you don't know what to do with it, you're not even halfway there. And then you have to have a support system. You can't do it all on your own, right? You have to have the people that support you. And if you have people in your environment that are negative and don't support you, you have to decide what you're going to do about that.
So you decided.
Back to you.
Yeah, you decided that. You left that job. It was pretty.
If I left the job and it was very scary, yes, it's very scary. And every day, I'll tell you something, Brad. I don't remember when was the last time I was in my comfort zone. So it's not a destination to become successful. So it's not a linear process where you say, okay, Michelle, you were in a place where you felt like you're wearing shoes that are 2 sizes too small. Then you felt the pain. Then you decided to change your life. And then you narrowed down on it. You got your support system it happens every day.
Yeah.
And when you are in a growth process, you're going to move from one goal to another, because what is the ultimate destination of success? But I think that when you live a life with purpose and with passion, there is always the next thing for you. And so you are in a constant quest of becoming better, finding more things in yourself in terms of what we call your full potential that are more interesting and fascinating.
Yeah, it's hard to know what your next goal is until you've reach that current goal. Like when you turn the corner, you can see what's around the corner type thing. So hang on, let's complete on the 5. We got to the 3. Let's complete on the 5. I don't want to leave people hanging on this. Actually, maybe we should. Then if we leave them hanging, they got to buy the book. So,
Yeah. So there's the pain, there's the decision, there's the support system, there's the carrying through obstacles where, life throws curveballs at you and you still don't give up, which is a huge part of the journey. And then there's the become part, which is the 5th part. And the become part is when you become that person that is capable of doing those things. So it starts from the pain. And for a lot of people, when they are in the pain part of the process, they say, this is terrible. What is happening to me right now, me experiencing all this pain, I'm miserable. Why is this happening to me? Why do other people have it so easy and I have it so hard? And I say, no, you got it wrong. You're being blessed right now by experiencing that pain because you got something to work with. Because if you don't experience that pain, you're going to live a very shallow life. But if you experience that pain and you build on it, you got a great material to work with. From there, you can move to the rest of the stages. You can't get to any of the other stages if you don't go through the misery of walking around feeling like you're wearing shoes 2 sizes too small, or sometimes it's in the form of a tragedy. Something terrible happened to you. And I've worked with a lot of people that this was the catalyst to their change, to their growth as people. So, embrace the pain. The pain, whatever it is, as horrible as it is, it could be your blessing in disguise.
Yeah, one of the challenges there, and I guess it's an interesting one around success, is how do people that are, I guess, comfortable, complacent, what happens? How do we need to push them off a cliff and say, go, you're like the bird, pushes the baby out of the nest and makes it fly type thing? I mean, how do they get through that complacency? Or
Brad, how many people do you know that wake up every morning and say, I don't need anything. I'm so fine. I'm so happy. Like everything in my life is so perfect. So I'm just, give me someone like that. And I'll say, you know what? Maybe you don't need to make a change. Maybe you don't need to grow. I don't know a single person, just unless they're lying. That's a different story. I know a lot of those. Unless they're lying and trying to put up an act like their life is super perfect and their kids are super perfect and everything. Unless it's that kind of thing that you see a lot on social media, I do not know a single person. Yeah. Everybody has pain.
Yeah, the amazing person on Instagram that I love those Instagram ones where Instagram versus real life, it's like that's that's the. So let's flip that over then and use that for a second. So how can failure teach success then?
See, everybody gets the material to work with, right? So everybody gets the pain to work with. You have pain in your childhood, you have pain right now, whatever it is. So you got the foundation. Now the question is your perspective. And so if your perspective is woe is me, poor me, I'm miserable, why do I have, there's nothing's going to happen to you. You're going to stay with the pain. But if your perspective is, I have to figure out why this happened to me. Why do I have this pain? What can I do with it? If something hurts you, like physically, right, you would go to the doctor and you would try to get to the bottom of this. Why does your knee hurt? Why does your head hurt? Why does your elbow hurt you every time you bend why are these things happening? And so, but when it happens to us in our lives, we're like, I'm just not lucky. No, there's no, it's not about luck, and it's not about karma, and it's not that you're not lucky, and it's not that you have a pattern in your life, something you've been doing over and over again that got you to this place, or you just got blessed with something to work with and you need to realize what you can do with it.
I love it. I love it. Listen, I'm Brad Sugars. I'm your host. We're here with the Change Doctor, Dr. Michelle Rozen, and we're going to come back and talk about change and leadership and how to get through all that stress and all those things. We'll take a break. We'll be back in a second.
Getting rich is a lot simpler than most people realize. Billionaire in Training by Brad Sugars puts you on the fast track to wealth creation through buying, building, and selling businesses, and doing it at a faster pace than you ever thought possible. Pick up your copy of Billionaire in Training today.
Welcome back to the Big Success Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Sugars, the Change Doctor, Michelle Rozen. Michelle, listen, change is the big subject of the day right now because literally it's the only consistent. How do you define change in your world? Because it's your profession, it's your thing.
Right. So we've had a panel of change management professionals right before the pandemic. Like, Brad, this is like 2 days before shutdown when somebody, we would put a few hand sanitizers and think that we beat the pandemic that week.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a panel in New York. And I remember telling them very clearly, I don't believe in change management. So that word change, like it's a big word. So what does that actually mean? I told them, I don't believe in change management. I believe in life management. So change is about taking everything that hurts you, because we talked about that pain, right?
Yep.
Taking everything that hurts you and doesn't work for you, and figuring out what you are doing over and over again without even thinking that brings to that result that you can change. Because a lot of our behaviors, the average person makes about 35,000 decisions every single day on what to wear, what to say, how to save money, how to handle the people they love, how to handle business, right? How to handle everything. And it's not humanly possible to make 35,000 decisions. So a lot of those decisions we make without even thinking, like autopilot all the way. And some of those automated decisions take us to places that we've been at 100 times over in our lives, just because this is how we do things. So if somebody's going to trigger you and you're going to snap, somebody triggered you and you've snapped like 1,000 times before in your life. Yeah. So the question is, how are you going to do things differently to get a different result from a very mindful place? And that's the essence, not just of change, but of success, transformation, happiness, purpose, everything.
So thinking that through, and if we can start to move it to a business conversation and business change, because
sure,
let's start with the process. There's changing yourself, which, they always say changing yourself's hard enough. Changing another group of people is a bigger challenge. So how do we introduce change in a team environment, not just a personal environment?
Of course. I work with that all the time because a lot of my clients are Fortune 500 companies, big corporations. So I don't believe in the distinction between the company and the individual. It has to be combined. Because if you're not going to buy into the idea of let's do things differently to get a different result, to get what we want, if you're going to stay with it just on an organizational level, you've got to buy in from here. It's the right thing to do. It's going to bring you business growth. You know all those things rationally. You're not going to buy from the gut. To create a real sustainable change within a company, within an organization, you have to get the buy-in from the gut. And that's the that was actually great. If you have bloopers, put me on bloopers. That's the become part of the process. That's the fifth phase. Why? Because you become the kind of person that does things differently to get a different result. You become the kind of person who is more mindful in everything that they do. You're not going to be able to separate the two. So I'm really huge on personal change intertwined with organizational change.
Yeah. So as a leader then, how do people lead through change? Because I know you teach a bunch on this, and I've loved so many of your learnings on this for me to apply personally. Give everybody else, though, the things that I've had the privilege of learning from you.
So when you lead a group of people through change, I think the most important thing to understand for the leader is how difficult it is. It's really hard. It's really challenging. The brain hates change, hates it with passion, because we want to be comfortable, because we want things to stay the way they are, because it's less energy for the brain to spend. So the first place I usually start with is the compassion piece and the understanding of what you're actually asking people to do and why they resist you. the human factor of leadership that has been sort of a growing trend over the years before the pandemic became very central to leadership. And I just did a LinkedIn Live on that just recently with 3 other leaders. And they've expressed their opinions too, and their take on the fact that the soft skills are now critical. So if you're the kind of leader who leads a team through change, the first thing you need to do is work on yourself, work on your people skills, because if you don't have the compassion and you don't have the ability to work well with others and to show gratitude, you're not going to make it. You can have a stellar process for change management. It's not going to work. You got to be a person first. So it's back to like the things that our mothers taught us, that our fathers taught us, that our grandparents, how to be a person.
Yeah, treat others the same way, all that sort of stuff. One of the things I noticed in many of my companies pre-COVID to post-COVID was a change in the culture of the organization, where that culture that everyone loved coming to the office and everyone had a great experience, and everyone really enjoyed it, and then they worked from home for a while. And it's like, well, do we love coming to the office anymore? Or do we kind of love doing both? Or do we kind of love... So take me through how, we can, I guess everyone's back, but bring back that feeling, I guess, in people. How do you get that culture back? How do you get that feeling back in people?
We have that need to go back. Remember at the time of the pandemic, Brad, when everybody said, when do we go back to the normal? And then everybody discovered that there's no going back. It's going to be something completely different now. We're never going to go back to what it was before. So there's a need of leaders to understand that this is a new situation now. And let's not forget that a lot of millennials came into the workforce. There's a lot of new young people that have a completely different mindset. You need to lead them completely differently. They need a lot of purpose. They interact very differently. So there's a lot, the savvy leaders who are now, at top leadership position, there's a lot of new things for them to learn. They're not in their comfort level too, because you think that they would know how to do it by now, but everything changed. And what I was talking to leaders about at that LinkedIn Live is the need to be very tuned in and mindful to where people's minds are at, because what we're perceiving as people's needs right now in 2022, August 2022, is not necessarily going to be where everything will be in a year from now. Change is not, okay, things change and now we have to adapt. Change is more like, oh my gosh, everything changes all the time. How do I perform at my best within all this change that is happening so quickly?
So that leads me then to reactive versus proactive change. I see a lot of business people, they wait until, the world's ending, they have to change, versus being on that leading cusp of continually changing for them. Explain to people the mindset, I guess, between the two, and how do they get into that proactive mindset?
Brad, what's the most important thing that I feel we should tell people? I think we should tell them to stop. And stop means that to stop and think. Because the race is going. And a lot of people are burned out these days, and they don't even realize that they're burned out because they're so busy. We live in a very busy culture. And so if anybody wants to shift from being reactive to proactive, the first thing they need to do is pause and think. How many times, people don't have time to think. So when you run a company, you have meetings for the company with an agenda, with a mission statement, with tracking down, goals and performance. But you don't do that for yourself, right? You just go on from one thing to another. And so you're reactive.
Right.
How to stop? Listen, I love walks. Whenever I can, now it's super hot, but whenever I can, I take an hour-long walk and I think when I move my body. I can't meditate. Other people, I'm way too ADHD for that. Other people meditate. Someone else may swim. Somebody may go to therapy. Somebody may go to a coaching session, just to stop and reflect. So to shift from reactive to proactive, first you stop, you reflect, you think, and then you shift.
Yeah. When you said that, I'm sitting there thinking, well, I do all of the above: swim, run, walk. It's like I must do it a lot. So that you mentioned though in there the whole burnout, the overwhelm thing, that stress factor. I know that's something that you're big and you care a lot about. How do people move through that, and what's the process of that one?
So burnout has, I mean, we can look at it from two different angles. One angle is your own burnout. The other one is other people's burnout, right? So in terms of your own burnout, the most dangerous thing about burnout is that most people, when they're burned out, they're too burned out to realize that they're burned out because they just go on from one thing to another and they try to make it and get through the day. It's literally drunk driving because if we're talking about success, and the heart of all success is good decision making, good mindful decision making in different aspects of your life, right? You can go here, you can go there, you can take the right move or the wrong move. Then how are you going to do that if you're so burned out that you're not even thinking right? So for yourself, the most important thing is self-care, 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 and assume that you're burned out. After the last 2.5 years, everybody's burned out to one degree or another.
Yeah.
So that stopping to think and reflecting and self-care is not just a social media term. It's really important. It's a really important part of success, number one. Number two, when it comes to other people, when somebody else is burned out and you're dealing with them, believe me, Brad, they're not nice. Okay. It's not that they're going to come to you and say, hi, Brad, listen, I'm a little burned out. So I just wanted to let you know, and I apologize. I may come across as a little agitated, but we're cool on that, right? Like I'm burned out and you're cool with me. It's like, they're going to be the most obnoxious people. They're going to be like passive aggressive and horrible. And you're going to think to yourself, who is that person? Like, let me give them a piece of my mind. This was totally nasty. Like, why are they like that? And so we don't know why the other person is like that, but it's a symptom of burnout when you're agitated, irritated, not patient, passive aggressive, not nice. So if that happens to you and you encounter that kind of person, for the love of God, be patient.
Yeah.
Be patient with people these days because you don't know what the other person's going through.
Yeah. I know when it's my 4-year-old daughter, it's like, okay, she's just tired. We know she's just tired.
Yeah.
But you don't do that with other adults as often or as easily as you do with the kids. So
Right. It's true.
wonderful advice. All right, we're going to take a quick break. I'm Brad Sugars, your host. We're here with the Change Doctor, Michelle Rozen, and we're going to come back and talk about leveling up your success.
Dr. Michelle Rozen, a.k.a. the Change Doctor, holds a master's degree and a Ph.D. in psychology and is a highly respected authority on the psychology of change. Find out more on drmichellerozen.com today.
Welcome back to the Big Success Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Sugars. Dr. Michelle Rozen, leveling up success. Not just success, but massive success, big success, as the name of the podcast. What are some of the keys to getting people to that massive level of success, going from good to great type thing?
I think going from good to great has to have a good reason, right? You have to want to go from good to great. Maybe in some circumstances, being good is good enough and you're perfectly happy with being good, and that's fine. Going from good to great, to me, is harder than going from not so good to good. That's a lot of effort. That's a becoming process where you grow as a person to someone who is great. Now, someone who is great can be great in business, great as a personal, you can totally, we talked about it, totally fail in business, but really be an incredible parent. And that's your life purpose.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. I think the heart of it is really challenging yourself all the time and having a good reason to do that. And then in the short term, you lose the comfort. You're constantly challenged. You're never comfortable. I'm literally talking about myself, Brad. But in the long run, you really, really reap the fruit of your efforts. You gotta have a really, really good reason to get up in the morning and do all of that. And it's gotta be greater than yourself. I mentioned my family. As far as I'm concerned, for some people, it's another goal. It's gotta be something that is above the daily grind, that is going to make you go through the daily grind to get there.
Yeah. I love that whole concept of, that personal growth, that whole thing. And if it starts with the change of someone's dreams, the change of their goals, how did you do that? How did you go from that? Or how do you see other people do that, where they go from average goals of pay the bills and get by to the massive goal of the achieving greatness or achieving a great thing, or even whether it's business success or life success? What's the process in your mind that either you went through or you see others go through?
I think it has so much to do with what coaching is all about, right? And nobody knows that better than you. So I think it has to do with knowing how. People don't know how. You start life, you go to school, you get this degree and that degree, whatever training you get. Nobody teaches you how to pursue goals. And how are you supposed to know that? So unless you were lucky enough to read a certain book or meet a certain person that taught you how to do that, you have no idea how to do that. And so before you know it, you give up. You're like, oh, this person did all these great things because they're so amazing. I can't do that. So I'm just going to pay the bills and, continue living here because you don't believe you can. And even if you believe you can, pretty much you give up pretty quickly because you don't know how. So the how should have been taught in second grade. And I'm going to share something with you, Brad. My youngest daughter, Mia, she's 14 now. So when she was about 11, she came back from school with, and she said, we set our goals today. And I looked at her sheet of setting goals. And it's literally a bunch of obscure general statements that will take her nowhere. So I'm going to listen more. I'm going to be a better student. And I look at it and I'm like, that is not how you do it. So I call the teacher and I say, Mrs. So-and-so, whoever it was at the time, let me come and teach the kids how to set goals. And the teacher says, listen to this, Brad. She said, no, we're totally good. The kids already set up their goals for the year, so we're fine. And I'm like, they're missing out because if you don't know how to get really granular with your goals, if you're going to say all these general things, none of this is going to happen. Before you even get to the plan, to the concrete plan part of it, if my daughter said on that sheet, instead of I'm going to be a better student, if she said, I'm getting at least 3 A's and 1 A plus by the end of the first semester, so there's like a specific goal and a deadline, let's go. I'm telling you, it's happening. But a student that says, I'm just going to be a better student, is just like people saying every year at New Year's, I'm going to lose a bunch of weight this year and I'll be more fit. I don't know what that means. It's not going to happen. You're going to drop it by February. Tell me I'm going to lose 50 pounds by, Easter. And I'll tell you, you know what? I bet you're going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. The law of specificity is still alive and well for us all. Isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the quick fire round, all right? We're going to talk about 7 different areas and what's your one key thing to having success in this area. First one, what's your key on relationships, successful relationships?
Accountability. Start looking at what you're doing because you can't change people, but you can change your reaction.
Perfect. Health, key success on health.
Respect your health because you need to respect yourself.
Wonderful. Wealth, key success on wealth.
Set goals and pursue your goals. Wealth
Excellent.
Is not a bad word. It's a wonderful word. Pursue it.
Now, normally I would ask this, but I think you've covered, but I'll ask it again anyway. Goals, key success on goals.
Granular, granular, granular.
How about fun and vacations, the good times? What's your key to success on having those?
You got to have some fun.
And finally, self-development, key to success on self-development.
Your life, it was given to you as a gift. Respect it and keep growing for the rest of your life. Because in nature, whatever doesn't grow crumbles and dies. So keep growing.
Love that. Okay, so we finish every Big Success podcast with this question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given on success, or the best quote that you love for success?
So I can tell you what I sign my books with, and that's my key to everything. I sign it with, it's never going to be the right time. Take the first step.
Love it. Dr. Michelle Rozen, the Change Doctor. Thank you for being on the Big Success Podcast.
Thank you, Brad, for having me.
You've been listening to the Big Success Podcast with the #1 business coach in the world, Brad Sugars. To learn more about how to achieve business and personal success, as well as how to level up or listen to past episodes, visit www.bradsugars.com.